With me today is Mike Griffin. He is currently the president and CEO of Cleveland Bradley Chamber of Commerce. He's got more accolades than any person or guest I've had here today, and we're going to unpack it and figure out what the deal is.
That's so funny that I knew how to get here from watching that on.
It is. It's funny how you. And I don't think I mowed the yard in about 4 years. But you know, it's not.
Ever since you shot that.
It's not a yard. It's just the forest.
Yeah.
You don't mow the
nice.
forest.
It's nice.
I got a letter from the city saying mow your yard, and I just sent a letter back and said it's just the woods.
Right.
Because you don't mow woods.
You don't mow woods, no. And that was that.
Did you say you went walking today?
I did.
How far?
6 miles.
So where would you go? The Greenway?
I did. I try to do 4 miles every day, but on Sundays or Saturdays sometimes. Usually the 4, I got to get home, get ready, get to work. You know, I've got a schedule to keep.
You go in the mornings?
Mornings usually, yeah. Today I didn't go until after lunchtime.
Where do you start at?
Well, I live on Centenary, and so I come out, and like today I've got different tracks, so going all the way around to, sometimes I go left, sometimes I go right, but let's just say I go right, all the way down to Inman, and then all the way down to Harl, up Harl, past Arnold, and then down Willow to the Greenway, and follow the Greenway all the way to 25th, all the way up 25th, all the way back down Ocoee, back to my house. It's 4.25 miles.
Like what, at 6:30 in the morning or something?
No, I'm doing that way. Yeah, well, 6 o'clock.
What's traffic like at 6 o'clock?
It's starting to pick up, you know, and there's a big difference between 6 and 6:30.
Well, is it cool?
It's
Real
cold.
cold?
Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's...
You walk...
Now it's
even,
nice.
Do you walk even if it's raining?
No. I'll usually, if it's raining in the morning, I'll usually just skip it and then walk after work. I just try to get it in whenever I can. Sometimes, like next week, I had to teach junior achievement. Like last week, I had to teach junior achievement on Wednesday. I had to be there at 7:30, so I just didn't walk, and I just waited and walked in that.
On the Courthouse Square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
Don't that make you feel guilty when you're on a routine and you don't do something?
Yeah.
Why 4 miles? Anything significant about that?
I don't know. I mean, I started out 3, and then I thought, well, I can do 4, and then I think just that's a natural square. Mm-hmm. But then, like today, when I got down, today I went left, and so I went all the way down to 25th, and then down to past Church of God, and then I went under 25th and walked all the way to Cleveland High School, and I added 2 miles to my track. I walked one whole mile out that way and one whole mile back, and that gave me 6 miles today.
Is there many people on the Greenway at that kind of time in the mornings?
Not today there were, but no, in the early mornings, no. There's not a
nobody.
lot. There's a few, and it's the same people I see. You know, I see Bill Estes out there a lot. I see Bill Martin out there a lot. See Ginger Buchanan a whole lot.
Walking,
yeah.
Do you think walking's as good as running?
Probably not.
But you can keep that up, and you can keep that up.
Yeah.
I always found exercises you can keep up are better than exercises you can't keep up.
Right. I just feel like I'm doing something, you know.
You listen to music?
No.
When you're walking?
I just
walk?
think.
What do you think about it?
I just think, well, like you mentioned I'm involved in a lot of stuff, so like I did the commencement address at a keynote speech at Cleveland State's graduation this past week, and or last week, or week before last. But I did my whole speech just walking. I structured it and put it into parts, and then went and just typed it out because I wanted to My speech was about me and about how, kind of like what you're doing to me today, just talking about me, but kind of telling about, you know, I sort of became a banker by accident. I know your brother's a banker, but I never intended to be a banker. I'm still kind of surprised I was a banker for 34 years.
34 years.
Yeah, but I tell that story, and I've told it to high school graduations, I've told it to senior classes, or just going to high schools and just talking to groups of kids and just telling them, don't sit here today thinking you know what you're going to do, because it could be something entirely different. So kind of keep an open mind. So that's kind of where my speech started.
Who was it gave the commencement speech? The guy that don't ever give up. Who was it that gave that speech? Remember that speech? Famous speech?
Yeah, I can't. It's not coming to me, but I know what you're talking about.
It says.
Oh, you're not talking about Coach.
No, but that was a good one. I remember that one.
You know the one I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one you're talking. I'm not sure who told you one you're talking about.
When you got into banking? Were you're involved in so many things on every board. You're like a professional board member.
Mm-hmm. I sort of am, but I wasn't always that way. I mean, I thought about that today when I was walking. I probably didn't get that involved in all these things probably until my kids were grown in high school.
Which was you were about how old?
Probably, well, see, I was only 45 when my youngest, graduated from high school. So I went through Leadership Chattanooga in 2000. He graduated from high school in 2007. I went through Leadership Chattanooga in 2007-08. So he was already in college when I did that. And going through that program kind of introduced me to a lot of other people, and people started asking me to do this and that and get on different boards and stuff. I think that kind of started it, but Rotary really started it. And I joined Rotary in 1996 at the Hamilton Place Rotary Club. I was in that club for 15 years before First Tennessee, First Horizon moved me up to Cleveland.
So you were born and raised in Chattanooga?
No, I was born in Dublin, Georgia, and my father...
Where's Dublin?
Dublin's an hour south of Macon. Macon. You go through Dublin on the way to
Is
Savannah.
that where Brian Poole's from?
No.
He's from Duluth.
Or Canton.
I think he said Duluth.
Duluth, maybe so. I know around the land.
You think Dublin? You think they got that name from Irish? Dublin
They
Irish?
did. Yeah, everything. They celebrate St. Patrick's Day like it's theirs.
Is that right? Are you part Irish?
I am.
Fighting Irish?
Yeah.
Did you hear that thing about the Irishman likes to fight so much? There was two Irishmen fighting on the road, and one Irishman walks up and says, "Is this private or can anybody get in?"
No, you go through Dublin. Sam McReynolds, who was one of my mentors at the bank. He's still at the bank every day, by the way, 85 years old. But he'll always say, "Went through Dublin," because he goes to Sea Island. He's got a place down there, and so you go through there like it's I-16. Like you go to Savannah, you go through Dublin that way. But born there, my dad got a job with Ernest Home Wrecker Corporation in Chattanooga, so we moved here. That was when I was in 4th grade, and then
When you say here, you mean Chattanooga?
I mean Chattanooga, yeah. And then a year and a half later, they gave him an option. They said you can either take the territory in Laguna Beach, California, or North Augusta, South Carolina. And the North Augusta territory was South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And of course, his mother and our family all still was in Dublin. So of course he picked South Carolina and not California. Thank God.
Yeah.
And so we moved there, and then I remember leaving Chattanooga, and I remember being in the back seat saying, "Is there any way we'll ever come back?"
And you were how old?
I was in beginning 6th grade, and no, we're done. We'll never come back to Chattanooga. And 3 years later, the Holmes brothers started Century Wrecker Corporation. They came up with the technology for the hydraulic wrecker, And so they spun off and started Century Record and called my dad and said, we want you to be the sales manager. So they brought him back to Chattanooga. So we came back to Chattanooga, and I was at Red Bank High School. Red Bank.
Were you glad to get
Junior
back
high.
to Chattanooga?
I was.
Were you in high school with some of the old friends in
A
sixth
few of
grade?
them, yeah. But you'd lost connection, so
Yeah.
you had to reconnect. And so, but graduated from Red Bank High School. Met my wife at Red Bank High School. So,
So so you had no idea you was going to be in the banking business?
no. So, stay on the subject of my father. So I always wanted to teach. That was always always thought that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so, my dad would say, no, that you can't support your family the way you've been raised on a teacher salary. And so I, agreed. And so I started out, in business administration. So I got all these business courses. And then about my junior year, I just decided, you know what, I really want to teach. I don't care if I'm not rich or whatever. And so I had 12 hours of accounting, 12 hours of economics. I had all these business law, all these business classes I'd taken. So those fit very well into a business education major. So I switched my major and graduated with a degree in business education, still thinking I was going to teach. And then there were no business openings at that time. And that was back when there was a city and a county school in Chattanooga. And so so I had been waiting tables all through college. I got married before I graduated. I was student teaching when I got married, when Kim and I got married. And we married in '83. And so what did I do? I went and got a job in a restaurant because that's what I knew. I knew that business. And so
How did you know that business?
because I'd waited tables all through college. So I'd been around the food industry and everything. And thought that I would enjoy doing that. At least, I had to get a job.
Whereabouts in Chattanooga?
Did I work?
Yeah, I mean, what restaurant?
What restaurants? Yeah. And that reminds me of a funny story about Bo I got to tell you about restaurants in Chattanooga. My first waiting job was at Formosa Restaurant, Chinese restaurant on 153, right across from Marshall Miles Ford. Best Chinese restaurant then and still today in Chattanooga, and it's still there. And
Isn't it the same name?
yeah, same name. And Mitchell Lynn was the owner. He hired me. Both my brothers worked there. They're the ones that told me to come over and work there. I started working there, and then then Kim and I got married in '83, and Kim's sister worked at Vine Street Market. Do you remember where that is? Downtown?
Yeah. Vine Street, there's a big
right
deal.
next to UTC. And so I got a job down there, and because we got married and moved to Cameron Hill, the apartments where Blue Cross is now. And so that was more convenient to go to school and to work. And so we were pregnant on our first anniversary, still in school. So when I graduated, I had to get a job, so I couldn't just fiddle around till I found something that would be, what I wanted to do. So I got this restaurant management job for a fast food restaurant called Grandy's. Grandy's, fast food that doesn't taste fast. It was sort of a mix of a
Fast casual, they call them back then.
kind of like that, yeah. I had to go to Texas for 5 weeks to train, and I stood there. I got in a car with 3 grown men in a little Honda Accord to drive to Fort Worth, Texas, with my pregnant wife standing there in the rain at Northgate Mall, and that was pretty tough. And headed off to Texas, and 4 weeks into it, and it was very regimented. You learned how to. They had a bakery. They made cinnamon rolls and biscuits and dinner rolls. So you had to learn how to do all that. And so each week there'd be a different, one. And chicken was a big thing. We had to learn how to manage all that stuff. So 4 weeks into it, I was working customer service. So I was at the restaurant like at 6 a.m, and she called and said she was in labor. And so when I got there, after driving out there for 2 days with these guys, I called my dad and I said, "You got to get me airplane ticket because I'm not going to drive home 2 days. She'll probably have the baby before I get home. So I had an airline ticket, and so I had an uncle there in Dallas, and he called and came, picked me up, took me to the airport. I landed. Both my brothers were in the car with my dad. They picked me up at Level Field, rushed me to the hospital. I bumped into Phyllis Miller. You know Phyllis Miller, getting off the elevator. She had been up in Polk County at her cabin, and both of us got there 30 minutes before my daughter Julia was born. So it was...
It's not a second to spare, huh?
No, and my wife wasn't happy, but she was glad I got there in time. But the hardest thing I've ever had to do, I got to stay home for a week, but I had to go back to finish that last week. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And just a side note to that we mentioned Phyllis Miller's name, you know, fast forward 25 years, and I go on the Erlanger board, and there sits Phyllis Miller on the Erlanger board. So that kind of, you know, put that in perspective, you know, that, you know, 1 minute I'm just some, you know, kid working in a, you know, just trying to survive. And 25 years later, I'm sitting on a board with Phyllis Miller, who I love and respect. But, you know, back then...
Which is unusual because she's from Polk County, which is closer to Cleveland than...
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like you've migrated this direction or something.
But the funny thing, though, is looking back on it then, thinking, you know, she was just this grown, you know, OB doctor.
Yeah.
And looking back at the time, I was 23. No, so I was 20, maybe 24 or 5. And she was only like 32.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
do
I?
But thinking then that she was probably like 40 or something. But I love her to death. We've gotten to know her as a friend since then. And I miss seeing her, you know, being off that board. But anyway, so how I wound up in banking. So I did this job for 9 months. And it was hard. It was hard work. And I'm a perfectionist. I would stay there until the latest hour, making sure everything was perfect before I closed that restaurant. And I chose to do it because the main manager, the general manager, he was a slave driver, and he'd let you have it over the smallest little thing. So I was not going to give him any, you know, any itch to get on me. But so I was probably working 70 hours a week, and my dad's banker, Bill Stansberry, who worked at Northwest Georgia Bank right across the street, says to my dad one day, Mike's working really hard over there. He's very impressive. He goes, you think he'd ever be interested in being a banker? I mean, that's how I got into banking.
What was you, 26, 27 then or something?
1987.
How did he know you?
Because he worked right across the street, and he came over and tried to get our account.
Oh, I see.
And I'd heard his name.
You're just kind of friendly to him a little bit or something?
I'd heard his name for years, you know. But he, now I get the job. I talked about this in my speech. I get the job, and it's in collections. So I'm calling people for their, you know, past due car loans, house loans. And, I mean, I was literally at the bottom of the barrel as far as at the bank. I went and got the mail every morning. If a delivery truck came up, I went and unloaded it, carried everything up to the stock room. I went and got the president's car washed or took him to the airport, you know. I'll tell you
Fed the dogs or whatever.
There are some other things I won't mention that I did that just, you know, it's okay. But I was never too good to do any of that, you know. But I learned a lot. And a year and a half into that, banker by the name of Bob Peck came to me and said, you've got a bright future ahead of you. You've got a great education. You've got a good head on your shoulders. He said, you're going to be a great banker. And he said, you can do it here, but it's going to take you a long time. He goes, you need to go to First Tennessee or American National, which is now Truist, and send them your resume and get in a training program. And, you know, plus you're from Chattanooga anyway. And so I did. I did what he said, and I think I had another job like in a week. But he did that because that bank had a assistant manager's job open, and he put my name up for it, and they went and hired somebody outside the bank that didn't even have any banking experience, and it made him mad. So, and he became a mentor and a good friend throughout my career. But so that's how I went up in banking. So it was completely by accident.
When did you feel like you were a real banker in that whole process?
Well, so getting that job in collections, which I said was bottom of the barrel. The job that I got at First Tennessee was in it was commercial workouts. So it was loan rehab and recovery was the name of the department, and it was a 2-man operation. And the guy that was the second guy in there had gotten promoted to another position, and so they had an opening. And I mean, I think I got like a $3,000 raise, and I was working with commercial loans instead of installment loans. So it was a step up in the collection world.
Yeah.
And but if I hadn't had that, it was that little bit of collection experience that got me in the door there for that. And then another banker, I did that job for about 10 months, and another banker, I guess I do a good job. I mean, I worked hard, and he noticed the work I was doing, and said, called me back to his office one day and said, I've got an opening, and I want you to come work for me. It was in correspondent banking, and that's where, do you know what that is?
Is that where the banks work together to
Yes.
make there's another word for that, precipitate? No.
Participation.
Participation, yeah.
A participation loan is one thing that we did in correspondent
That's when the
banking.
borrower's borrowing more money than y'all can lend him.
Right.
Or
That's
feel
right. That's
comfortable
right.
in.
Yeah. The, loans, smaller banks, you've got caps on how much you can
Yeah.
loan to one person. So sometimes you have to loan it out to another bank.
Yeah.
But we provided all kind of services for other banks, and so that's what I did. I got that job. I got a great raise, nice promotion, and but I didn't know what I was doing. And so I'm going and calling on bank presidents. I remember one time I went and called on a bank in Cartersville, Georgia, and walked in the president's office, and he looked at me and he asked me about myself, and he goes, "What in the H do you think you can tell me about banking?" Mm-hmm. And I looked at him and I was like, "Nothing," and I was just like,
yeah.
So I went, and this was a risk, but I went to my boss and I said, he's passed away, and I, Corky Batten, rest in peace. But I guess I put my career on the line because I was very unhappy because I didn't know what I was doing. I was frustrated, and I went to him and said, I need more training. I need to go out and work in a branch or learn the retail bank. I need to learn how a bank works. And
you'd skipped that part, sort of, hadn't you?
Kind of I had, and so that was sort of rolling the dice. He could have just said, "You're out."
Yeah.
But I think he believed in me, and he believed in that I was a good hard worker, and so they sent me out to Hamilton Place, and I trained there for about 6 months, and the next thing you know, he calls and says, "I'm bringing you back downtown and making you the manager." Again, kind of over my head, but and I was coming in having people that had worked there for 30 years reporting to me. They didn't like it at all. A lot of people in the bank didn't like it, but I'm a good guy, I don't have many enemies, and we all worked it out.
Yeah.
And became friends, and I learned a lot from them because they knew they had so much history and knowledge, and I soaked all that up, and that's really where I learned how to be a banker at that point. And I had another mentor, Wayne Alverson, was I called him Daddy, and he called me Junior. Still does. I still call him Daddy. And he's the one, when I got sent out to Hamilton Place, he's the one that trained me in loans. And of course, instead of collecting loans, I started making loans, and that's a big difference. But I owe him a lot for everything he taught me in banking. So
So
yeah.
the banking business is different then than it was now than it is then, right?
Seems like a little bit, yeah.
Was it still red tape then, just different red tape? I mean, you can't just throw money out the front door to everybody that walks in.
Right.
So you always got that, right?
Yeah, there's always different regulations coming down the pike, and a lot of times it's not the banks that are doing it, but it's the government that lays different restrictions on you, and you just have to conform and comply with them.
It's always interesting to me how somebody can be going through a career and be doing just fine, still got ways to go, and all of a sudden at a, I don't know, 45, 50, 55 years old, they completely do an about face and go to something else.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes a lot of thinking and a lot of nerve, doesn't it?
Well, you're constantly being trained, and technology, I think, is a big part of it. It keeps changing, and you have to change with it and learn it.
But I mean, you quit, you retired from that and became the
Well,
president.
the bank, and you said 50, 55, whatever, 58, the bank offered me early retirement. And I had been with the bank at that point 32 years. I was with them 32 years total, the other bank 2 years. But
Why do they do that, offer somebody early retirement? Just cheaper?
honestly, I think it was an expense cut across, across the board. They were a great organization to work for, and they treated me well, and I got a great retirement package, and do you know how I wound up where I'm at now?
No, that's how
Okay,
it was
so,
interesting, how that,
Yeah, so that was a pretty tough year. My mother-in-law passed away like 1st February. My dad passed away 2 weeks later, and then I was retired
when did you get that notice?
in March.
So February, your mother-in-law dies. 2 weeks later, your father dies. And 30 days later, they ask you to leave in a nice
Sort of.
way.
In a very nice way,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So what went through your mind?
it's a little bit of a shock, but this is what happened. So
Were you burned out on the job?
no, I was not at all, really. I thought I had another good,
10 years
7
or-
or 8,
yeah.
9 years left. But my Gary Farlow. Okay, so I was the chairman-elect for the chamber. And Gary Farlow called me in January, before all that happened, called me in January to tell me he was going to retire at the end of March. So as the chairman-elect, I was the chairman of the search committee. So we started a search committee, and a bunch of good people on it and everything. We had our first meeting.
Now, this is when, in March of that year?
This would have been in February.
In February of that year, when your mother-in-law died, passed away, same time.
Same time. And then we were getting ready to have our second meeting. My dad passed away, and so we had to cancel that meeting. And so then I got retired, and so I took early retirement. And then,
What was the options? To stay?
Not really. I mean, I probably could have asked to stay, but I kind of thought, now might be a time to try something different anyway.
Were you financially good, ordered to do that?
I was in good shape, yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I wasn't ready to retire at 58 years old.
So you didn't worry about the money?
Well, yeah, but I wasn't going to starve, but
Yeah.
I knew I was going to find something else
Yeah.
to do. And I immediately started talking to other banks.
Yeah.
And, but there were 3 people that really set me on the path to where I'm at today. One was Matt Ryerson. I was his board chair at United Way, and we were good friends. And I called him. He was in Florida at a conference, and I called him because I didn't want him to hear from somebody else that I was leaving the bank. And the very first words he said were, you ought to go for Gary Farlow's job. And then
Had it even entered your mind? You were looking for at the time, you were in charge of looking for somebody.
It had not entered my mind until
Yeah.
he said it. It had not. And then Millie Calloway, who we lived next door to Mike and Phyllis Calloway. And Millie Calloway was in my leadership class in Chattanooga before we ever moved here. And we became good friends then. And I was talking to her on the phone, and she said, you really and truly ought to think about the chamber. She said, all your connections, all your civic involvement. She goes, Mike, I work with every chamber president across the state, and you would be perfect. So that made me really think about it. Kim White from Chattanooga, she's been a mentor to me. We served on the UTC board together, and See how all these boards
Yeah,
play
yeah,
into
it
it?
all plays into it. Yeah.
Kim White, she was on the Erlanger board when I came on there, and she was at college when we were, but we were on she's the one that asked me to come on the UTC alumni board, and that really got me involved in UT, just the whole UT system and everything. And so she thought the same thing. She said, you know what, 34 years in banking is enough. Go, I think you should really think about that. And what kind of sealed the deal on it was I had been the chamber does a capital campaign about every 8 to 9 years where we raise money to help fund our different programming and stuff just throughout the years. It just sort of helps our budget, and been very successful doing that. I think this was the 4th one we had done, and they had asked me to be the chairman of that. And so I had chaired that campaign, and we raised $1.6 million. And it was the first time, I'll brag about this, first time we'd ever made that goal. And so in a way, it's kind of like that was my tryout for the job. I mean, if he could do that, he could probably run the chamber. So Gary, I went down there to the chamber, and we took a newspaper picture saying, holding the big check, we met our goal and everything. And Gary called me back to his office, and he said, I really, really and truly think you'd be perfect for this job. And that's what really made me think, okay, I should probably do this.
And at the time, why not?
Right.
Well, you knew what they did because you'd been on the chamber board for so long, right?
I had, yeah. And, I had thought, I ran the museum board for a couple of years. I was on that board for 5 or 6 years. And I remember then thinking, that's a lot of work. And, the museum has to work hard to operate. And I remember thinking, when I was on that board, I've told people this before, it's almost like you carried it on your shoulders all the time because you're worried about stuff all the time. I was almost as happy to come off that board as I was Erlanger, if that makes sense. And Erlanger's a $1 billion hospital. But I've always thought, I wish one day maybe I could retire from the bank and go do something like this. So in a way, it kind of happened earlier than I thought it would. But I probably have one of the best nonprofit jobs because the chamber's a nonprofit. So I probably have the best. I think I do have the best nonprofit job in Cleveland, Bradley County. United Way's a great position too. Stephanie Linkus does a great job down there. We've got so many great organizations, but this would have been my number one pick if I had a choice.
The chamber's not going to go away.
No, and we just,
Now, how long have you been there as the president?
It'll be 5 years next month. I started on my dad's birthday, which I thought was kind of ironic.
Even though he had passed.
Well, he passed in February,
Yeah.
but his birthday was June the 3rd. And Bernadette called and said, well, you can start on June the 10th. And I said, well, no, I want to start this week. And she goes, well, no, you can. And I said, no, I want to start on my dad's birthday.
Which was June 10th.
3rd.
3rd.
June 3rd, yeah. So June 3rd, I'll be there 5 years.
Think about this. February, what year was that?
19.
So think about
Year
this.
before COVID.
February the 19th, you wake up and everything's fine. Within February, March, April, May, and the 3rd of June, so really 4 months. In 4 months, your mother-in-law died, your father died. You were asked to take early retirement at the bank, and you had another job.
Yeah, a lot of life changes
in 4 months.
In a short amount of
Golly.
time. Yeah. It's all good.
You ever think that stuff like that happens is
For a reason?
What do you think? What's next?
Well, I think about all that all the time. I had a conversation just last week with somebody, and like, were you put here for a reason? Like, I can think of lots of reasons, lots of things, good things that I've done or that have come from me being here. But, I don't know. You never know.
You ever wonder, speaking of that, I wonder sometimes I'm running late somewhere and I think, boy, I shouldn't have been late. And then I think, well, maybe I'd have had a wreck if I'd have been on time.
Absolutely.
We're all, 15 seconds away from getting a car wreck or something. So you just kind of let it go, don't you?
100%.
Are you the kind of person that just lets it happen, or are you proactive?
Let's what happen? Life
Whatever, yeah.
Or,
Life.
I'm pretty easygoing. Like I'm pretty laid back as far as.
Now we're talking about a guy that said he stayed at the restaurants till they closed,
That's right.
and you wanted to go work at the chamber 7 days before.
Yeah.
So you're maybe not as laid back as you
Well,
think.
I mean, the thing about that was, my last day when I had that conversation with my boss at the bank, I worked for another month, and so I had not worked for like 6 weeks. I was ready to get back to work. I mean, it wasn't because I couldn't buy groceries, but I was just ready to get back to work. I just like to work. I've always been like that.
Does your mind wander when you're not working?
Wonder?
Yeah. I mean, or do you just get bored?
Yeah, maybe. That's what I wonder about. I was talking to somebody about retiring. It's like, well, you've got to have a purpose. You know, you've got to have something to do. You can't just, they say a man just kind of dies if he's not doing something, whether it be work or a hobby or whatever it might be. So I think I've got enough stuff going that,
It seems like the chamber, being president of the chamber, would be a bigger job than maybe I would realize. I mean, you're not just coordinating the monthly coffees, right?
no,
They still have those?
we do. Yeah. Second Tuesday of the month.
They have them at different places?
They have them at the business that's hosting it if they've got room for them. But
Yeah.
sometimes it might be a small company that doesn't have a big enough room. We're averaging over 125, 130 people at those now.
That's a lot.
They're a lot. It's full if they get the chamber. They're flowing out into the lobby out there from the big room.
Have you ever thought about when the chamber first started?
A lot. A whole lot, because next year's our 100th anniversary.
100 years, so that would be what? 18...
25.
Not-
Or no, 1925.
1925. And Cleveland, now was that the first, that wasn't just the first chamber period, that was the first chamber in Bradley County?
In Bradley County,
Yeah.
yeah. We were, I'm
That was-
real involved in Rotary too. So Margot Steele came and spoke to our Rotary Club last week about what was going, because Rotary Club just had its 100th anniversary this year.
That's,
You've heard
Yeah.
that. And so, so Margot came and she just pulled all this research on what was going on in Cleveland in 1924. And it wasn't just about what was going on that affected Rotary, but just what was going on. There was.
because why did they need a rotary? Why did they get a rotary? And why did they get a chamber?
Yeah, why did that start?
Yeah.
Why did those two start
Yeah.
so close together? But a lot of things, the chamber was mentioned several times through her, because it wasn't just that year, but it was like the following few years, and the chamber was mentioned a lot. There was a lot of disease and outbreaks and stuff going on back then. Clean drinking water was a big issue.
That was right after the Depression or right before?
Right.
So the Depression, what, 1929?
It was right before.
Right before.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, there were like 3 or 4 different things, and I can't remember them all. But one of the things that was being discussed and was like in the newspaper was that overpass on Inman, relocating that overpass on Inman, and here we are 100
They
years
haven't moved it
later,
yet.
still doing that. It's pretty funny.
Do you know, I read somewhere, or unless I was dreaming, that road used to go across the railroad tracks, and later it went under. Have you ever heard that? I've heard that.
Yeah.
If you look at the train, it is a straight shot.
Do you hear my funny story about Bo?
Huh.
So, you do want to hear it or
Yeah,
no?
you did.
Okay.
A minute ago you said I need to tell you.
So, I got to know Bo through Junior Achievement.
My brother, yeah.
Your brother,
Yeah.
Bo. And,
Yeah, you're on that board too.
yeah. Well, I was in Chattanooga and I volunteered for Junior Achievement. See, because I love being in the classroom. I love
Yeah.
teaching. And so
That's where
that's
you-
been a natural thing. I've been doing that for like 25 years. But Bo's been on that. He's been the long-standing treasurer for that board forever, at least 10 years. But, and I don't know what it is. I think maybe sometimes it's, I see so many people around me that let's just use Keith Barrett as an example. Keith's been chairman of the United Way. He's been president of the chamber. He's done all these things at a very young age. Now, he's my age, but I think I was new blood when I came to town, and everybody just,
So he'll do it.
yeah, let's get the new
Maybe.
guy, and that's kind of what's happened. And I was happy to do it because it got me involved.
Sure.
But, so they came to my office, this back when the bank was still over in Raider Drive. We were in there for about 7 months before we moved over to Key Street. And they came to my office and asked me to be on that board. I think I've been into, United Way came to me that very first month, and Junior Achievement came to me the very first month. But at one point, we had a luncheon or something, and we had it down at Catch. And we're sitting in there, and I was sitting next to Bo, and he looked over at me, and he's like, man, this is really good. And I looked at him, and I said, you had ever been here before? And he goes, I said, don't you ever take your wife to dinner? And he went, well, we always go to Chattanooga. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so anyway, I always give him a hard time about that. But we're so blessed here to have the restaurant offerings that we have. We go to meet people sometimes from Chattanooga and Ottawa. We'll go to 1885 or whatever, or El Primo,
El
whatever.
Primo's, yeah, I've been there a couple
And that's
of times.
convenient,
Yeah.
so we're not having to go all the way in,
Yeah.
and they're not having to come
You
all
can
the way
take
to
the back
Cleveland.
road.
Yeah, but no, we're good here. I've said this before. This has been in the newspaper before, but there's nothing that I need or want that I can't find right here in Cleveland.
I remember when all we had was Shoney's,
Yeah, and now it's gone.
and now it's gone, yeah. But we've got plenty of restaurants here. If you want to go somewhere on Saturday night, you don't have to
You've got
go anywhere.
anything you want.
Anymore, I just want to go home, though.
Yeah,
I'm sort of, I eat out 5 days a week.
yeah.
I eat out. I've eaten everywhere, 3 or 4 times.
We had so many ribbon cuttings going up Paul Huff there, like McAllister's.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all. We call
Freddy's
that we
and-
call that the food court.
Yeah.
all up there.
That steam engine place. Have you ever eaten at that place? I haven't either. Steam sandwiches or something. I ate at Sauceritas today.
Did you see about the Chinese or Asian buffet that just opened?
I wonder if that was
And they ran out of food?
I wonder if that was a gimmick saying that.
I don't know.
It would be a good
But
one.
I'll tell you, we had a ribbon cutting there, and they fed us, and it was good.
What was it, $11 for the buffet, I think?
They didn't charge us, so I don't know. But if this is $11, that is a deal.
What would you say is the real purpose of the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, people ask me that all the time. And of course, that's when you say the purpose. So the main purpose, number one, we're membership driven. So we're, the core of our revenue comes from membership dues. That's number one. So our number one job is to support our members. And that's anybody from Whirlpool to the new Chinese buffet that we were just talking about that just opened. And to promote them, to support them if they need, any kind of information, to and well, let's just go back. So as far as like membership driven, but then we've got, we work with existing industry. So we work with all the companies that are already still here, M&M Mars, Duracell. We do things for them all the time. We've got Cleveland Associated Industries, which used to be a separate organization, and the chamber just kind of took them in. So they pay dues to that. So industry pays dues to be part of that organization.
Would that be Doug Berry?
No. Well, he's involved in that.
He's industrial.
I'll get to him in a second.
Okay.
But the Cleveland Associated Industries, again, that's supporting our existing industry. So they have they do like safety meetings. They have all the personnel managers come and meet together. A lot of educational things for them, and then you get Doug, he works on bringing in new industry, and I guess you've heard he's been pretty successful. Has he been on the show before?
Yeah, I
Okay.
really like him. He
Okay.
tries really hard, and a lot of the stuff he does, won't show up for 20 years.
Right. That's right. He brought in, I want to say right now he's working on 16 individual deals, but Bradley County brought in more new jobs last year than any other county in Tennessee. And that's including, Shelby or Davidson
And that's
or
saying a lot.
Knox. I mean, yeah. So, and you give a lot of credit to Doug on that. And then there's some that aren't even counted in those figures that they're looking at that we know that we brought in that don't even run into that total. But so Doug manages all of that. He stays very busy. He's probably got enough on his plate to keep him busy for 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And then then we get to the point where we're kind of out of land. We've just about filled up that industrial park, Spring Branch down there. So now we got to find another
That's
one.
incredible. I remember when they were wondering how in the world would they ever be able to fill that up.
Right. They just keep coming.
What are they coming for? Just various sundry reasons, or is it one reason?
Well, I think as far as Tennessee, they're coming, because of our low taxes. There's no state income tax. That's a big part. The real estate
Right to work law, I think.
All
is
that, that's a
one.
big part of it. And a lot of our things are coming. This is sort of a corridor now for vehicles, with Volkswagen being right there, and then you've got Birmingham, and then you've got Greenville, and that we're sort of right in the middle of all that.
So the Chamber of Commerce would be to promote and support its members,
Right.
Which happen
Because
to be.
every time we bring in a new industry, that helps everybody, right? That helps every doctor in
So
town.
if you're getting ready to go eat somewhere, you say, "What am I hungry for?" That's a member.
Right.
Is that sort of the way you?
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah. I won't say the name, but when I first got there, my favorite place to take somebody to lunch was not a member. And they had been a member, but they had dropped. And so I went marching in there and said, "Look, if you want to see me, you're going to have to join." And they did. They
Well, that's what, when anything that has the name chamber, that takes you back to, I'm going to guess that in 1925, that being a member of the chamber then was probably, maybe it was more of a, I don't want to say a secret society, but more along those lines, wouldn't you say?
Well, I'd say it's more like
I mean,
it'd be more on the lines of like the Better Business Bureau. I think if I see a chamber sticker, and this was before I ever worked there, but if I saw a chamber sticker on a door or in a window of a business, this is what I think. They're supporting this community because when they support us, they help us support all the others, right? So, and if our just minimum chamber membership is only $310, that's like $27 a month. And I promise you get $27 a month value out of that. It's just not very much. Now we offer many more things above and beyond that, but just to be part of us, I think it's a shame that not everybody just wants to be, or they should be, or I would not want anybody to, because of their budget or whatever, to say, well, we can't afford that, because it's very affordable. And that's how I sell. That's what I always say is like, when you're part of us, you're supporting everybody in this community.
It should make you back $320 a year, I'm guessing, at that minimum,
Yeah.
just by a few more customers.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you got rid of, this is an unusual question that you may not even know the answer, but if you got rid of all the small businesses that were a member of the chamber, or you got rid of the big industries that were a member of the chamber, which would be worse? Is there enough small ones to make up for the big ones, or are the big ones just 80% of it?
Well, it's a numbers thing because probably I say we're around 750 members, and so probably, and I'm guessing, but 600 to 650 are probably smaller. So it probably hurt the community more in the whole business world if we lost all the small ones.
The small
Because those
bu-
are the ones I feel like we help the most.
The small businessman is still very powerful if they'll stay together.
I agree. And, you know, when you say small businessman, the first person that comes to my mind is Larry McDaniel. I think he's the
Perfect
epitome.
example.
He's the epitome of a small business owner, and all he does for the community. And, you know, I value him more than anything. And he knows, and he always thanks me, you know, for everything that I do for the chamber. You
He
know.
wouldn't come on my show.
Wouldn't?
I asked him.
Well, he probably couldn't leave the shop.
I probably have to go there.
Yeah, he'd probably do it if you come down there. No, he's a great guy. But so going back to what all the chamber does, so there's existing industry and bringing in new industry with economic development. Then you also got, I know you know Melissa Woody in tourism, and you know she'll tell you all day long, we don't have a beach, we don't have a water park, we don't have an aquarium. I still say we need something like that.
Yeah.
Every time I hear Doug Haywood talking about Trek Through Truth, that could be our
That could be.
That could be our big
It could
thing.
very well be.
yeah. That would bring
Yeah.
cars off the interstate. But we've just got so much natural beauty around here. I was just walking today when I was walking. I walked through the park over by on Raider Drive, and so you know.
Oh yeah, with the
I live right
pavilion.
I live right down there by Deer Park, so you know it's always packed with kids. But I just I thought about just how beautiful this in the stream running through. You can hear the water.
It's really nice. It's really. I wished I had time to walk the Greenway.
You want to hear my talking about my speech?
Yeah.
This is just reminding me talking about the walking and kind of smelling the roses kind of thing. So like I told you, I've told that story. I've told my story about how I wound up in banking, which I just told to you. I don't go into all the specifics that I just went into you, but anyhow, the way I patterned my speech, I broke it out into 3 parts. One was to be open, so to be open for opportunities. Don't be closed-minded. Don't think I'm going to work at the post office the rest of my life. That's all I'm ever going to do. That's all I'm good enough to do, or whatever. I don't mean to say anything negative. My grandfather worked at the post office, but that's just popped in my head. But then also, I lost my last word.
Be open, number one.
Be open and be present, meaning show up for work on time, work hard, prove yourself, be irreplaceable, be important to your employer. Don't be too good to do whatever needs to be done to get the job done. And I said, I've lived by that my whole life. I still do, I still take the trash out. I still go take the recycling. I mean, I'm there to whatever needs to be done. But, and then be generous. Give, first of all, take care of your family, but then, give back to your church, give back to your community, whether that be money or time. So that was, and here you are. This is your first opportunity to be an alum for Cleveland State, to start giving now back to this school, and then as you grow in your career, always support the college. But so that's kind of the gist of my speech. But so I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I wonder what they're going to say when they introduce me. And Dr. Andy White, the new president, was going to be introducing me. So I got Casey, his assistant, to send me what he was going to say. Well, he was going to read my whole bio, which you've got. And I thought, okay, so it made me want to change what I was going to say around a little bit. So that morning I had to be over there at 9 o'clock. So that morning I got up earlier and I walked to my office and changed it all up, printed it off, brought it back home. And when I was coming back home, I came up by, got up to Centenary, and there was this guy standing there walking his dog. And I'd seen him before. I know where he lives. He's probably a college student or something. And so I didn't turn there, so I walked on across the street and turned to go down to my house. And I glanced over at the guy. And he was stumbling. He was stumbling like in the dog. It's a little dog, a little cute dog, but he was stumbling on the leash, and because he had his face in his mouth. Okay. So I got home, went, got ready. My wife came upstairs and she said, and I told her that story, and I said, I'm so tempted to say that today.
Change the whole
Yeah.
sort of speech.
Well, and that's what I was afraid of. I
Yeah.
said, I can't do it
Yeah.
because it's just going to mess me up, and I can't do it. And so, because I printed this thing out, I wasn't going to try to say this out loud. I was gonna have it, and I was gonna read it off, and and do it right. Because anytime I just do it, just off the top of my head, I always forget something, or I'll think, did I really make that point, or whatever. But anyway, so she said, do it. When I told her that, she said, do it. And then when I got over there, I went over to Dr. White and I said, I just got this crazy idea. And he's like, I think you should do it. So I went over to Corey Campbell and I said, because he was going to be the one to get up after I was finished. I said, when I say thank you and they clap, you keep your seat because I got one more thing to say. So I did my whole speech.
Maybe part 2 or something.
Yeah, when I finished, I said, I got one more thing to say. And I said, and this is for everybody. It was in the gym. There's probably 500 or 600 people there. I said, this is for everybody. And I said, this is something that happened to me this morning. So I told the story about the dog. And then I said, put your phone down when you walk your dog and enjoy the beautiful morning. Okay? And then I said, and these young couples that are walking down, strolling their kids in their stroller, all on their phone. The one thing I didn't say, and if I ever tell this again in any way, and I'll say it now for sure, but a family of 4 sitting out in a restaurant. They're all
Everybody's
playing on their
looking at
phone,
their
or
phone.
talking on the phone, or doing
Keeps them
something
from
on their
arguing.
phone, not looking at each other, not talking to each other. See 2 kids walking down the street together, they're probably texting each other than to even talk to each other. It's easier to do that way. And then I said, and distracted driving. I said, I have seen many, especially kids, not looking at the road, looking down at something, or you know what they're doing.
It just takes a second.
Right.
And we're all guilty.
And one kid drove down sitting there the other day. I was working out in the yard, and I looked up, and he looked like he was about 12, number one. But he was driving, and he's doing this. He was no more looking at the road. And so I said, don't let your phone dictate your life. And then I said, put down your phone and smell the roses. Got a good hand for that. And then afterwards, at least 4 or 5 people just passing them, like people that were just in the bleachers, were saying, I really appreciate you saying that, or good job. Or they probably didn't hear any of that other part of the speech, but that stood out. So anyway, but I thought, if I don't do this, what if one person, what if I change one life? What if I save a life today?
And they're not looking anything up. And if they're
It's
looking it
stupid.
up, it may be the wrong information. Just forget it. Just let it go.
Wait till you get there.
Yeah, just let it go.
I needed to look at mine on the way over here, and I waited till I got here and I looked at it. I don't know. But that's the way the world's going now. And
It's the way it's going, and there's no stopping it.
yeah.
I don't know how to
There's a
stop
book,
it.
the number 1 best-selling book. I saw it in the newspaper today. The number 1 nonfiction book is this whole generation that's coming up like this, and it's all about the phone, being addicted to their phone.
I heard somebody say that the high school prom, this may be wrong, but said that the boys and girls don't even ask each other. They just go because they don't go as couples. Have you heard that?
Yeah,
When did that start?
I know.
What's the point? And I guess it's because of, I never realized till recently that being sociable is a learned skill.
Right,
It's not something you're really born with, I don't think.
right. I agree.
You being members of these boards is the reason you're members of these boards. It starts a thing. If you're not a communicator, you're not going to be on a board.
No.
Do you think a lot of these boards operate about? I was on the Cleveland Housing Authority board. Man, that was a lot of decisions. That's not an easy. You think you're just sitting there saying yay or nay or voting on the minutes, but it's not like that at all. It's complicated thought out stuff.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's the way most of the boards are, or a lot of them just?
They're all different. They're all different, and it's all different depending on what their work is. Some boards are just like that museum board. I felt that, like I felt responsible for the whole entity.
What time's the meeting going to start, and do they have the caterer, even down to that wire? I guess right.
Or the Erlanger board probably trumps anything I've ever done or ever will do, and because Erlanger's I think the largest employer in Chattanooga, and you realize you've got. It's just so critical, everything about Erlanger.
And you're not a doctor.
No.
I mean, that's
and
what
my wife's
they do.
a nurse, and so now I try to tell her that I know, something about medicine. Or anytime I'd come home and talk about something, she'd say.
How many is on the board of Erlanger?
Well, it's all changed now.
They're like 10 or 15? 11.
They're 11, yeah.
That's a big responsibility.
And I chaired it my last year. So that was a good way to go out.
I was on the home builders board. It was tough.
That's a big board.
It was tough.
Yeah. So the big one I got coming up is the UT Alumni Board. Do you know what that is? So,
that's the. No, I'm not familiar with that, to be honest with you.
So it's when I was on the UTC Alumni Board for like 8 or 9 years, and then during that time I got appointed to the UT Board of Governors, and it's the University of Tennessee Alumni Association Board of Governors. So it's sort of the mothership for all the alumni activity for all the campuses, for UTC, Martin, Memphis, now University South, which is in Fayetteville, I think, and of course Knoxville. But so I did that from like 2011 to 2013, and then they asked me to come back on a few years ago, like a year ago, to finish out one guy's term, and then next thing I know, they've nominated me to be the president. So there's a dinner end of this month that I'll take over as the president. So I'll get to travel around to all the different campuses, and I'll have a lot of great experiences doing that.
That sounds like you would have a little bit of traveling just for.
It'll be a big time commitment, but I went to my board and said, my chamber board, who is my boss, because I wanted to make sure that they were good with it, and they were all positive about it. They think it's good for me. They think it's good for Cleveland, to have the representative on there. I'm proud to be a UTC grad and representing the whole UT system. So I'll be wearing a lot of orange and stuff, but. Because I love the whole system too, but
that sounds like a pretty prestigious.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. Yeah, I'm gonna work hard, and Tom Losh, he was principal at Bradley. He worked at Cleveland State. He's the former chair, and then Debbie Ingram, she's from Cleveland. I don't know her maiden name. You'd probably know her too from her maiden name, but anyway. So Tom's a great guy, and he was we were on that UTC board together, and then he was board chair in Knoxville. So
going back to the Chamber of Commerce, do you think that it's still important to be for the business itself, when it boils down to you got the Industrial Development Board, the associations, the Chamber of Commerce, you got all this stuff. But isn't it still important for the customer that walks in to have a good experience? Isn't that the very basics that you got to have?
Yes.
All that other stuff, you can throw it out the window if you've got that.
Right. That's right.
I think that's something that I'm seeing disappear from businesses.
Yeah.
And maybe it goes back to this thing about being on the phones.
People don't know how to talk to each other.
For instance, I went down to Staples about 3 months ago and took my phone, and I said I didn't want something that downloads these phones onto a thumb drive so I can put it on the computer. I didn't want to lose them. I didn't want to make a mistake. And they had a tech counter there, And the guy said, sure. And he went around and got a thumb drive and brought it over and said, I said, you want me to download these? And I said, yeah, if you don't mind. So he downloaded them. I said, I'll go do some shopping. And I came back about 10 minutes later, and he had them down, and I got the thumb drive and left, came home, put it on my computer, and I was done. All right. Last week, I thought I'm going to do the same thing. The guy says, we don't do that. And I said, you must be mistaken. I said, because they did it last week. No, we don't do that.
It was a different guy.
A different guy. I said,
Yeah.
where's the, I said, well, he gave me a thumb drive. He said, you can look over on that. He didn't even give the aisle number. He just said, you can look over the aisle over there. And I'm trying to first get it straight in my head what he's trying to tell me, because it was so different.
Right.
I needed a minute for me to say, no, let me explain to you what I need. And then maybe he could explain to me why they don't do it. But it was just go away. And as I walked off, I turned around and he was looking at the lady putting up stock or something, and they were laughing at me.
Oh.
Oh, God, can you believe that? And so I started leaving, and some other employee said something else, and I don't know what it was, but it was not good. I couldn't hear him, couldn't quite hear him. So I got in the car, and I thought, well, I'll call the man, because I do all the maintenance on that plaza over there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I'm a redheaded,
Yeah.
you know, it's not like I'm a nobody. I go there twice a week. And
Well, it doesn't matter who you are.
it doesn't matter.
No.
Anyway, I was calling and said, can I speak to the manager? They said, well, they're technically not here. And I said, what does that mean? They said, well, they're putting up stock and they're not available right now. So I came back and I did one of those reviews online.
Yeah.
I left it up about an hour and I calmed down and I thought, I'm going to take that off. It's because, you know, you got your name on it and all that other stuff, and who knows. But I don't understand, and I see that a lot in businesses. And then you go over to Starbucks, you can't get out of there without them saying, have a nice day, Robert.
Yeah.
Everything's exactly right. Everything's a
Yeah.
system. So you wonder why some businesses, and Starbucks will have more cars than Staples will right now.
Absolutely.
Now it doesn't take a genius to figure out why.
Right. You want to go back there.
You want to go
Yeah.
back, and it's efficient, and
You'll
they're not
avoid-
laughing at
You'll
you.
avoid going back to Staples.
I'll do everything I can.
Mm-hmm.
It just blows my mind. But I don't know if I was chamber president for a day, I would have a class on how to treat the customer, even if you can't do it.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But that's a lost art, isn't it?
That's it probably. Yeah.
I mean, it's not lost everywhere because we know some places have
You
it,
just
Starbucks.
you just need to scout around for that other guy to be there. You know, the one that was so helpful the week.
Well, I mean, even not even being able to do it's fine. Just say, something. You know, we don't do that, but here's the thumb drive, and it said Technos. The counter was tech support. I mean, I wasn't there to order a hamburger. I was there to get tech support.
Right. That's
You know,
good.
it's just bizarre. I wonder how long the longest Cleveland Chamber of Commerce president has been there. I wonder who was the longest.
Well, Gary was there 10 years, so I figure I'm gonna beat his run.
Was there anybody that was longer since 1925?
Probably. I'm not sure. Jerry Bohannon was there before.
I remember Jerry. Boy, he's efficient.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's
I'm in Rotary with him too. He's a really good guy.
he's top notch,
yeah.
buddy.
Yeah.
If he was in charge, you can forget it.
The one thing I forgot to mention, so talking about our whole work program is also what all we do in the schools. So we've got one employee, her name's Danielle Sills, and so what she does is workforce development. So she does, we've got a youth leadership program, which is just like our Leadership Cleveland program, but they do basically the same thing. They go to Nashville, they visit the state capitol and all that stuff, but they learn about the city. There's an arts day, there's an industry day, there's an education day, there's a government day. So on those days they go, and like on the education day, they'll go to one elementary school, one high school, and then I think they do it back and forth. One year they go to Lee, and the next year they go to Cleveland State. But they, kind of just take turns doing stuff like that. But and they'll go they'll go to city council meeting, they'll go to county commission meeting, just get a feel for what all you see there. But there's a senior interview program where professionals come in, we get people to volunteer, chamber members, or to volunteer to go to all the high schools and sit and interview, kind of do a mock interview, just to sort of prepare them for what it'll be like in the real world. That's a great program. There's a job shadowing program that the kids can sign up for.
Through the chamber?
Specific areas that they want to shadow in. It could be medical, it could be, at some industry, or it could be in, there's a whole slew of different ones they can go to. Then there's the Best Partnership is another program where companies volunteer to be a partner with a school. So they pick a specific school. So and it's not, you shouldn't pick it just because your kid goes to school there or whatever, but like First Tennessee was partnered with Cleveland Middle. And that was at the time, and probably still is, the oldest partnership. I think it was, at the time when I was there, it had been going on for like over 25 years. But we would go over and help them do things, or we would always support their field day at the end of the year and, financially. But some schools, the companies do different things with the different schools. Some just go in and read to the kids, or donate this to the kids, or do different things for the kids. And so that's a real successful program too.
Do you have meetings with these different facets of the Chamber of Commerce? Do you have to meet with them monthly, or how do you get updates from all these different areas?
Like who? Like
all these different
the workforce
facets,
development.
yeah.
So
I mean, is there like one person in charge of that?
Well, there's different people in charge, and so so we
are they all employed, or just?
Yeah, we have. You got Doug, and then you've got Lisa Fain, who you knew Bernadette. So Lisa took Bernadette's place, so she takes care of the operations pretty much, and then Danielle does all the stuff with workforce development, and she's involved also now with the CAI, and then we got Erin Weatherford, who does marketing and PR, and Tammy Randolph just took over membership, so she goes out and calls on businesses for members. And then Melissa Woody, tourism, and Melissa Skinner's she's our sort of the color director of First Impressions, but she's doing some of Tammy's old job too, so sort of executive assistant. So that's all of us. 7? Yeah, I think so. And then plus me. And then we do a huddle every other week, and then I do one-on-ones with them, and they come and just talk to me about what they're doing, what they're working on. We kind of keep up that way.
Specific time every week? Was that always set up, or is that your system?
I'm real bad about that, I'll be honest, doing, scheduling, stuff like that, and I finally just did it. So it's on the calendar. But we used to do a work. This is probably up for discussion, but we used to have a work lunch at the end. We'd call it staff lunch, the last Wednesday of the month, and we'd order out. We'd go pick up something from the food court or whatever. Whoever's we celebrated a birthday that month. So today's my birthday, so this
is
would
that
be,
right?
So
Happy birthday.
So this would be my birthday month, and I would get to pick the restaurant and bring the food in, and then we were just sitting there and talk and enjoy lunch together. And
who watches the door?
we keep the door in the boardroom.
It's locked. It's locked.
No. We leave the door open, and if people just see somebody coming, they get up and go check on them. But we put it up for a vote. We said if we started doing these staff huddles, and I said, we felt like we needed to talk more, and so we started doing the staff huddles. And I said, well, if y'all don't want to do the lunch anymore, we can cancel it. And we voted, and Doug wasn't there, and Doug wasn't there, and they voted not to do it anymore. So we stopped doing them.
So but you still meet on to each person individually.
Yeah. And plus, I mean, with a staff like that, I mean, my door's always open for
Yeah.
anything, you know.
Are you a big planner like that?
Planner?
And scheduler?
No. I'm really not. No. But yeah.
Now, you walk every morning, right? Mm-hmm.
Well,
weekends it's 6
well,
miles.
I also play tennis twice a week.
Yeah.
And so sometimes,
Yeah.
for example, last Wednesday when I had to be at Charleston Elementary,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to be there at 7:30, so I just said I'm not getting up at 4 to walk, and so I knew I was playing tennis that night, so I didn't worry about walking that
Who
day.
you play tennis with?
I play tennis with, well, I'll tell you about who I play tennis with in Cleveland, but more importantly, I've been playing tennis with a group on Signal for over 30 years. And we play every Saturday morning. And so when we found out we were coming to Cleveland, I was like, my wife grew up on Signal Mountain since she was 5 years old. It's God's country, it's a very special place. But I never cared for going up and down the mountain. Some days you'd have to go up and down the mountain 2 or 3 times for whatever. And it was always a commute wherever you were going. Mm-hmm. But so I didn't care that much about that. Our kids were grown and gone. It didn't matter about them. But the one thing that hurt me was I was gonna miss my tennis. So I commuted up here for 6 months before we moved up here. And I thought, if I could drive up there 5 days a week, I could drive back 1 day a week.
Surely.
Right?
Yeah.
And plus my parents, of course my dad's gone, but up until 5 years ago, but my parents live at the foot of the Signal on Morrison Springs, the condo down there. And so, for 12 years, every Saturday morning I get up, I drive to Signal Mountain, play tennis for an hour. It takes me about 45 minutes to drive up there. And then come back to my parents and hang out for 2 or 3 hours.
Back in Cleveland by noon. Something like
No,
that.
I'm usually, like yesterday, I got back like at 2.
You play with the same people?
Well, one guy is one of the original guys. He and I went to high school together. My wife's known him since she was 5, since kindergarten. But his name's Richard Cole. But
You've played tennis with him every Saturday for 30 years?
We played in high school together. Yeah.
How many is in this group?
Well, we have a steady foursome right now, but it has evolved over the years, and some people have quit and got a bad knee now as we get old, or this or that. And just like next Saturday, I can't be there, so somebody will substitute for me.
Who substitutes?
There's we probably have 10 different guys we can call.
Well, who's in charge of calling them?
Me. Living in Cleveland, I'm the one every week sends out a text. Who can play?
The one that doesn't schedule stuff.
Who can play? And I'm the one reaching out trying to find the other person. I'm a planner for tennis.
Yeah.
But then
We just played for 1 hour?
no, we play for we play 2.5 hours. Saturday. It just depends.
What time did they start?
9. But now, since my dad died, I take my dog, Charlie, and drop him off at my mom's, and then go up and play and come back. And that is his that's his favorite day.
Yeah.
He loves going anywhere in the car.
Yeah.
But
What kind of dog is it?
he's a we thought he was
Let's see.
we thought you pronounced it Boer, but it's Beaver Yorkie.
A Beaver
you
Yorkie.
see
A
him?
Beaver Yorkie is a little thicker than a Yorkie.
Yeah, in the coloring.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's my best friend right there.
Did you take him to get bass?
Yeah.
Where at?
Great doggy doos.
They do pretty good?
They're fantastic.
How much it cost to get him a bass?
$50.
How often you take him?
About every 6 weeks. And hair and a trim.
Haircut.
Yeah.
They trim them too?
Yeah. Do you know that family? The
What?
Monk family? They've got 13 kids.
I thought I knew somebody that was connected with them, but I forgot.
They are daughter, same little girl has cut his hair. Her name's Rebecca, and he loves her, and she loves him. And that's another picture of him.
Boy, he's happy, isn't he?
He's cute, isn't he? He
Show a picture of that, Gwen. Can you get that close? You know, they say that dogs and owners end up looking like each other.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind saying that. No, he.
Have you seen that place out on Georgetown that's supposed to be a doggy daycare? I forget the name of it.
Where is it?
I just saw the bulletins, the billboard signs, but I've never been there.
A lot of people do that.
So you can just take them and have like care for them all day. Boy, that'd be a good business, wouldn't it?
I'm gonna show you one more picture.
Because you could write off all the maintenance you did on your yard and everything, couldn't you? Are you glad you're not examining people's finances for their loan renewals now?
I am. Show this picture. This is us. The story I just told. This is me and him. One day, my daughter was at my mom's too, and so she left and she pulled up next to us. That's me on a Saturday, right there.
On a Saturday.
Yeah.
And he's going to see his grandmother.
That's leaving grandma's, but yeah. He's a good dog, and he sent his mother flowers for Mother's Day.
Let me see if I can. Well, I would. Let me see.
But
Hey,
anyway, talking
Gwen,
about-
can you take a picture of this one too?
Talking about tennis.
Yeah.
So talking about Cleveland tennis.
I'm gonna show. While you tell me about Cleveland tennis, I'm gonna look up this picture of my dog.
Okay, so I've anytime I find anybody that plays tennis, I'll play. But Heartline and I play singles.
Oh, does he play?
Yeah.
Is he any good? He tries.
He's good. And I hate saying that, but and you must not listen to his show.
I listen to it. Yeah, how can? Yeah.
Well, because he trashes me every time.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. But
I must not be the time because I.
But he won't play. He won't play doubles. And I've turned into the old doubles guy.
So he won't play. He just plays singles. Mm-hmm. I've never played tennis in my life.
It's fun. It's a good sport. But anyway, my Cleveland story is the city started a league about 3 years
Tinsley?
ago. About 3 years ago. And so there were probably about 20 people that signed up for it. And you would go and you'd be paired off with different people every week. And it was on Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
And so we started.
Instead of going to church.
Yeah. And I've never been a big Wednesday night church person. But anyway.
I can't find that.
We made a lot of new friends and a lot of new tennis contacts, doing that. And the city league kind of fell apart. And some of us just as friends kept playing. And so I finally, just because there was this WhatsApp app or whatever, and so somebody'd say, who can play at 4 or who can play at 5? And whoever answered first got to play.
Yeah.
And guess what? I don't walk around like this all day,
or notifications.
right?
You have to get notifications.
Yeah, so I would, a lot of times I would just be too late to respond or whatever. And so I could go a lot deeper into this conversation, but I won't. But I didn't like other people telling me when I could play or if well, you can play over here, or you can do this or that. I mean, and so I finally just went to 4 guys and said, okay, it's us 4 every week, no question. And then if one of us can't play, then we have to get somebody to play for us. And we've got a bunch of people we can ask.
So this is on Wednesday night still?
Yeah, Wednesday night in Cleveland at Tinsley. But one is Chuck Pope, Do you know him? He's an attorney.
Oh, yeah, the
Yeah.
traffic
Lives in
court guy.
Athens.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah. And Drew Gilliland, he's the president at Brown Stove.
Pope's pretty tall, isn't he?
No.
Fairly tall?
No,
Taller than me.
maybe, yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, maybe a little bit. And Drew Gilliland, president of Brown Stove, I'm in Rotary with him. And then Jason Ledford, who used to work at Brown and now he works in Athens somewhere. He's a younger guy. But that's our foursome. And yeah, we've got probably 4 or 5 different people that we can call if one of us can't play.
What if it's raining or in the winter? Do you still play
You're
in the
out of
winter?
luck.
What, do you still go to Chattanooga when it's cold, or is it seasonal?
We play, if it's 21 degrees, we play.
With gloves?
Sometimes. I got a good picture of that. One time we went up there and started playing.
Because it'd be colder up there. I wonder how cold it is on Signal Mountain, what the temperature drop is.
You want to know the funny thing?
Yeah.
I think it's because of the elevation, but normally when I leave here and I go over White Oak Mountain, it gets warmer, and then when I go back up Signal, it gets colder. Cleveland and I get my weather app. I can do like that, and it's Signal or Cleveland, and it's the Cleveland temp and the Signal temperatures are about the same. But normally, if you're at the foot of the mountain, it's usually 4 or 5 degrees colder when you go up the mountain.
Oh.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, because you're getting elevation coming to Cleveland. You know what I'm
So
saying?
we're about the same elevation as Signal Mountain.
That's
unusual, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't think about that,
Yeah.
but I guess we are. So, because it's the Chattanooga Valley, they're sort of down low.
Here you go. Show this picture.
Yeah.
We went up there one day and it started snowing, and we played until
Golly.
Frank fell.
Let's get this one, Glenn.
Frank slipped and fell, and so we said, "Okay, that's it. We're gonna quit playing." So it doesn't matter.
That's dangerous.
We don't ever say it's too cold.
You'll break a hip.
We don't ever say it's too cold.
Why tennis?
I don't know. Well, when we moved up here,
Why not basketball?
when we moved, did you measure me when I walked in? No. When we moved back up here, my dad bought a house in Valley Brook, and there's a golf course. So both my little brothers started playing tennis. Golf.
Yeah.
And I never was interested in golf, and so I took tennis lessons, and that's how I started playing tennis. And then my wife played tennis, and so we would always play, and we play on vacation and stuff together. So.
I remember when people used to have tennis courts at their house.
Yeah.
There's no maintenance to a tennis court, really, is, except for the net.
Not really, but I think weather just starts beating it down to the point that you've got to.
You watched that yearly thing where they had the tennis matches. What's that? What do they call that?
That's all I watch. Have you ever heard of the Tennis Channel?
They got a channel for tennis.
I was watching a match this morning.
Golly.
There's a tournament right now going on in Rome.
What about those people that play on the dirt?
Clay.
It's clay, yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder why clay would be different than grass, and then grass different than concrete.
Well, they say clay's better on your legs.
Do you think it plays different? Is it really packed in good or something?
I've played on clay just like twice.
Can you tell the difference when you're playing?
Not really, but the ball reacts differently and different stuff.
What would it do on clay?
I think clay's slower.
It'd have to be slow.
Than on a hard
There's
court.
a little more cushion.
Yeah.
What about grass?
I've never played on grass. I don't know. But yeah, the
Wimbledon. That's what I'm trying to.
Wimbledon, and then the French Open is in 2 weeks.
Is that on concrete?
That is on clay. And then Australian Open is hard court, and U.S. Open is hard court. Those are the 4 majors.
These tennis champions, do they just stick with one type of surface, or they have to be able to do any of the
Most
three?
all of them, your top 10, 20 players, they all play all surfaces, and some are better than others
Depending on the surface.
depending on who they are.
So if you was a betting man, you'd say, hey, this one might win because they're a better tennis,
Right.
but that other one's a little better on clay.
Nadal, I know you've heard of Nadal. He's the Novak Djokovic is the number one player. He's won more majors than any other one. You've heard of Roger Federer. Those are the three.
Which one's always the one that's throwing his rackets and stuff?
Probably you're probably thinking of Djokovic.
Yeah.
And he got a water bottle or something thrown in the back of his head at this tournament going on right now, and he just lost today. He lost to like an unseeded player today, so he's coming to the end of his career. Nadal,
Why do you think youth has a lot to do with it, or
sure.
just?
But Nadal, I hope Heartline watches this. Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic are the three greatest players of all time, no doubt. They've won more majors than anyone, but Nadal is the greatest clay player of all time. He's won like the French Open like 11 or 12 times.
Wonder what would make him better on clay.
Probably just how he was raised. You know, he's from Spain. But I love watching the professional tennis. Really, I mean,
See, to me, that's like watching paint dry.
No, and then pickleball. You know, that's the big thing now.
Yeah.
You know,
That's sort of a diversion of the tennis, right? Or
well,
similar.
It's
It's done on the same court, right?
It's a smaller court, but it's played with a big plastic ball and a smaller paddle. Some people compare it to like ping pong, like if you mix ping pong and tennis together.
Oh.
But I mean, if you ask Heartline, he'll tell you this is what used to be what everybody said or thought was that pickleball was where tennis players went to die, right? When they couldn't cover the court and everything else. Now, when I'm over at Tinsley playing, it's all young people playing.
Nobody playing tennis much?
No, I mean, it's really, they're lined up to play pickleball, and there's tennis courts available. So
They say there's a lot of rules in pickleball.
but it's the fastest growing sport in the world.
I agree with
it's a
that.
real thing, you know. But
How big's a pickleball court? Is it as big as this room?
it's probably about this room, you know, probably about this size.
Does the ball bounce fast or hard?
You know
or-
how a tennis court, well, let's say this is the tennis court right in half, and then there's the two lines here. It'd probably be that,
Oh, I see.
you know,
Like
maybe
A third of the
maybe
size.
a third of it, you know.
you do any other sports?
No.
What do you do for hobbies besides going to board meetings?
Read
Fiction or nonfiction?
both.
What type of nonfiction writers do you like?
One of my favorite writers is Carl Hyacin.
What's his
He
work?
he was a newspaper columnist for the Miami Herald Tribune or whatever, and he wrote. Remember the movie? I can't think of it. He wrote. He writes about the environment, and he wrote this one book about Disney. You know, like
Brockovich?
no. He's a humorist, but
Like a satirist, maybe?
yeah,
Satirist?
Yeah. I can't believe I can't think of any
Yeah.
of his names of his books. But
Brockovich might have been one of his books, one of those, or not Brockovich, but I'm trying to think of the name.
what's
So he writes not fiction,
yes.
but I can't really get into fiction.
Well,
I'm more of a nonfiction,
You-
like
you are.
biographies.
yeah. Yeah, I like reading biographies a lot.
Yeah. It makes you wonder how much of the biography you're getting, how much of it's real.
Is real true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and you think a biography's got to be how they saw it, maybe not how it was, but how they saw it,
Yeah.
which is the way we look at everything is. I like documentaries.
Let me tell you the latest author that I've read that you might like. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Geraldine Brooks is the writer.
No.
And so my wife's in a book club, and they read this book called Horse. And she's like, oh, you've got to read this book. You've got to read this book. And so it is, she is a, and that's why I think you might like it, is she's a historical fiction novelist. And so this book called Horse took it started out with a young fella looking at his apartment and seeing this big pile of trash, and there was this painting of a horse. And later when he was outside, he walked over to it, and he was very curious about it, and somebody just put it out like in the trash. So he took it and took it back with him. And the whole story is about that horse that was painted back around the Civil War time. And it was the horse that, and there's an element of truth to all of these. So you don't really know what it is, but
Civil War.
But this horse was sold to and the little trainer that had been there when the horse was born. He was like a 12-year-old little black boy, and took care of that horse. They were both sold to a plantation owner down in New Orleans or somewhere. So it tells the story of them going to New Orleans, Civil War starting. It was a real turbulent time and everything. But this horse went on to be the sire of like all these great horses that came after. Like,
so that portion of the story may be
right.
true.
There's some part of that is true. So anytime I read a book like that, then I just want to know what they wrote before.
Yeah,
I really like that. So what did you write before? So I went back, and there's another book. And it tells a story of the plague in a small English village in the 1500s. And it was really good. It's kind of depressing, but it was told through the eyes of like a 16-year-old girl who was married and had 2 kids, and her kids died, and her husband died, and everybody died. And it kind of would go back and forth, but and then there's this book called March, and it said something about, and I go to the library, and it says something about Little Women. Well, Little Women, that's for girls. I put it down. I'm not reading that. But then I got then I read another one of her books, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to check out this March book. Have you ever read Little Women? I don't think boys read Little Women, right? That was, somebody'd laugh at you or something, right? But the Little Women is about the March family and 4 girls, and Dad goes off to the war. So in the whole Little Women world, Dad's not there. Where's Dad? What happened to Dad? This tells Dad's story.
Lord.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
So I've just been intrigued by her. So anything she writes, I'll read from now on.
I read a lot of Rick Bragg. You ever heard?
Yeah. All Over But the Shouting.
All Over But the Shouting, yeah. Ava's Man. That was the best thing I believe I've ever read.
I'm gonna
I met Rick Bragg.
You did?
Mm-hmm. Went to Birmingham, and I was getting off the elevator, and I said, "You're Rick Bragg," and he said, "Yep." That's all he said. I read Scott Adams too. I read all of his stuff. You're familiar with Scott Adams?
So I'm gonna tell you now, Carl Hyacin. First book was Tourist Season, and that's the one about Disney and about how Disney's just exploited Florida and doesn't care about the environment. And he has one of his characters that shows up in like 3 different books is called Skink, and he's some old homeless guy that has a beard and just lives off the land. But he goes and sabotages things and just kind of causes havoc. And he's the former governor of Florida, which is funny. Yeah.
Not the current.
The story the movie I was telling you about that I couldn't think of, starring Demi Moore, Striptease. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
That was a big movie, remember?
Movie, yeah.
That's I guess the first time I saw that book and thought, oh, I'm going to read that book. And And it's really a good book. I mean, that movie, I guess.
The books you're reading are more entertainment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, probably so. Yeah. Oh, but so Geraldine Brooks, guess what book I'm reading right now? It's one of her first ones. Let's see. It's the story of King David.
Other than the Bible.
Well, and I mean, it's
Or
making
she
me
thinks-
wonder. It's called,
Well, he had a lot of problems, didn't he?
yeah, it's called The Secret Chord. That's what I'm reading right now. It's kind of a slow book. There's also, she wrote this book it's called People of the Book, and it's a story of an old Bible that dates back to like 1400s. And it starts out by, it's a current day, they find this Bible, they get this lady to come in, she's from Australia, she goes to England, she looks at the Bible, she finds a hair, like in the spine of the Bible, she finds a wine stain, she finds a blood stain, and it goes back and tells a story of how that hair got in there, how that, and it takes you back. It's telling separate stories about that period, but it takes you all the way back, and it kind of tells the story of how that the book was actually even created. And then in the very end, though, it's like in Sarajevo, and there's the war going on and stuff, like in the 40s or something, and there's a little girl there that escapes just by the hair of her chin to get out of there. And come back to current day, and she's alive. She's like a 90-year-old woman. It kind of ties it all back together. You know, it's
sort of a mixture.
She's really good. She's
you know,
really,
it takes a lot to put all of that and to keep everything tied together.
well, and you're learning about that time. Forget the story and all that. You're learning about that time. And the other one, there's another one, Caleb's Crossing. I finished that one before this last one, and it's about a young girl and her Puritan father in like in the Boston area. What's the
That's where a lot of the Puritans were, right?
yeah. Let me see if he'll tell me. Anyway, Martha's Vineyard. 1665 in Martha's Vineyard. A young man becomes the first Native American to graduate from Harvard College, which at that time was just like a Bible school or something. But this little girl, like, runs into this little Indian boy, and they form a friendship, but it's kind of a secret because she can't let them know that she's, hanging out with some Indian kid.
Yeah.
And they're like 10 years old or something. And later on, they wind up adopting him. And it's a long story, but again, you're just learning about just what was going on in Martha's
The time
Vineyard.
period.
Yeah. So,
We've got an author here in Cleveland that does nonfiction that, if given enough time, he will be a award-winning writer. It's Charles Ken Phillips. Have you ever read
I've
any
heard
of
of
his
him.
stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had him on the show, and he's written about 5 books,
Yeah.
a trilogy.
I remember seeing him being on your show.
Yeah. And then we've got Tyler Boyd from Athens, wrote the Biggs Machine, which was about Polk County.
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, he wrote. It's sort of a documentary on the Birch Biggs, I believe.
Okay.
And some of the things that Polk County went through.
Yeah.
A little controversial, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, writing is so hard. And did you ever read Ava's Man by Rick Bragg, or did you just read the All Over But the
I don't
Shouting?
think I've read Ava's Man, but I will.
It's a lot better than a lot better than All Over But the Shouting.
Yeah.
You can't put it down.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't do it.
I mean, I used to read a lot more, and I don't know when I kind of stopped reading for like 2 or 3 years. Maybe it might have been when we first moved up here or something, and I was just.
It's a habit thing, reading, isn't it?
But that's how I read though. I'll find somebody I like, and then I know the one, Demon Copperhead. Have you read that? It's by Barbara Kingslayer, and it's a modern day retelling of David Copperfield.
Oh.
I would highly recommend that book. That's another one that no. One of my friends from Chattanooga brought that. Her name's Jan Cooper. She's one of my very best friends. Brought it. Never given me a book before, and just wound up. They go to the beach with us, and she shows up and says, "Here," and gives me this book, and I brought it home. I sat it on the shelf. I didn't read it or anything, and I think I was just looking for something to read, and I grabbed it and started reading it. But it's about a little boy who mother's like on meth. It's all up in Johnson City in the Tri-Cities area, and she's on meth. He never met his dad. It's kind of depressing just because he just has to face so much, but it's funny. It's told from his standpoint, his viewpoint, and it's a long book. But I recommended to my wife that they read it in her book club, and they did.
Boy, how those people come up with writing. Writing is a real art. People just think they're a writer till they have to sit down and write something that keeps somebody entertained. But I like the Coen Brothers movies.
Yeah.
If they write it, I
it's
watched
going to be good.
Secondhand Lines last week. That was a good movie.
I haven't seen that one.
Do you do anything else you go to First to Broad Street
Broad
Methodist?
Street.
Yeah. You're on the board?
No. No. They won't let me on that board.
You walk to church?
I'll tell you about. We don't. We should.
Yeah.
We really should.
Yeah.
The other board that I'm really involved in right now is the Thrive board. Do you know anything about Thrive?
I've never heard of that.
So when I got the job at the chamber, Gary was on the Thrive board. Gary Farlow, and the first thing he said was, "You're going to be on the Thrive board." Okay. But it's probably as far as my job, it's probably the closest thing to my work as any of the boards or anything. But it's sort of got a three-legged stool. It's economic development, transportation, and natural resources. So, and it's a 16 county. It covers 16 counties. So there's people on that board from 16 different counties. Northeast Alabama, Northwest Georgia, and Southeast Tennessee. But and Chattanooga right in the middle, And so the one thing we've learned is that, Chattanooga, the ridge cut going through Chattanooga is the 7th greatest bottleneck in the nation.
Golly.
Do you know that?
I didn't know that. But I knew it was bad.
So if you have a map, you put Chattanooga there, you've got Nashville, you got Knoxville, you've got Atlanta, you've got Birmingham, and it all comes through here.
It all goes through there.
Yeah. So so transportation. There's so many issues. You ever go early somewhere and see all these trucks parked on the exit ramps?
Oh yeah, I see
They have
them.
they're
They're up
nowhere
there.
to park.
They're in Calhoun.
Yeah.
Calhoun exit. It's like a parking lot.
Yeah. And that's pretty sad too, because and I guess truckers are probably have adapted to having to live like that, but
can you
get
imagine
to a bathroom or they can only drive for so many hours.
Can you imagine sitting on the exit ramp trying to relax?
No, just
it's cruel.
constant. Yeah,
it's almost cruel.
but they can only drive for like 8 hours, and they have to stop. I mean, and I don't know how they're monitored, but they can only drive for so many hours, and then they have to take so much of a break.
Yeah.
But so there's a lot of talk about building more, parking lots for them to have a place to park. But also there's a big move to try to do more on this, like the port. There's an inland port down in like Calhoun or Georgia.
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay, and
What's
so
something to see, isn't it?
yeah, and so trying to get more trucks off the interstate, and there's been talk about putting one up in our area to be able to bring things by rail and get some of these trucks off the interstate.
Well, there's nowhere. So y'all are just spitballing, sort of, in a way, just thinking
but there are some people.
I mean, you can't move
do you know
a road.
Connie Vaughn? You need to get her on here.
Connie Vaughn?
She takes care of government relations for McKee Foods, and she lives in Charleston. She's a Bradley County resident. She's a great lady. She's the president of Thrive. She could talk circles around me about all this. But one of the reasons why she and the McKee family are so supportive is because of, the issues that are out there. But let alone just the safety factor. And then, of course, you hear about these driverless trucks that are coming.
Yeah.
Which I don't even want to talk about that or what I think about that. But so you got the transportation, you've got the economic development, but then you've got the natural resources. So trying to preserve the beauty of our area, from development or whatever. So that's getting more and more land donated to these trusts so they'll always remain, wilderness areas and stuff.
That's really looking forward, looking way ahead.
Exactly.
You'd think the government would be doing that. I guess they are, but
this can't. You've heard of. Well, it originated out of the Chattanooga Chamber, and it was called Thrive 2055. That's Thrive.
Oh, that's how far out.
Remember that 2055.
No, I don't remember.
But they went all over the region and had all these meetings and all these planning and what are your, what are our problems? What do we need to be thinking about? But yeah, you're right. I mean, we'll be long gone by
the time. Somebody's got to think about it.
Yeah. So, but I'm on that executive committee too, and so, I enjoy.
What do you do when you have meetings that conflict with one another?
That happens.
Yeah.
I have to just decide, what's more important, but or not miss the same one twice and just kind of.
Where'd you get your organization skills?
I already told you I didn't have any. No, but talking about, some guy one time asked me, he said, why do you do all this stuff? What motivates you to do all this stuff? And this was like a legit, person that I thought, was probably just did it. I just kind of assume everybody does that, right? But one reason I did it is because I had one of my mentors in the bank was very involved like that. So I kind of patterned myself after him a little bit. But
did he wear socks?
He didn't. But
why don't he wear socks?
I don't know.
He never did.
Just kind of felt freer.
Yeah.
But what the reason, honestly, that I keep doing what I do is because of the connections and the people that I meet and the friendships I've made and I can't even tell you.
I think you like being involved.
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And that's it.
But that's something I can keep doing when I retire too, though. That can be one of those things that'll keep me busy. Like I know you remember Don Lorton. Think how involved he stayed. Think of Ron Braum. I mean, somebody said one time you said something about awards or something or whatever. The Ron Braum Award, when I got that from Junior Achievement, that was like, I think your brother's gotten that award. I mean, that's getting an award with that man's name on it means something to me.
There may be an award one day called the Mike Griffin Award. Is Griffin, is that Irish? Sure does.
Yeah.
Is it short for anything?
I've always been told we were Scotch-Irish.
Scotch-Irish.
But I'm not into all that ancestry stuff.
The Scotch-Irish were the first that settled America, weren't they?
Yeah, I think so. And down this area. Yeah.
What do you do on Sunday nights?
Pretty much crash. Well, Heartline night, that's usually our time. We play tennis.
On Sunday nights?
Yeah, but, and he'll say, I'm ready, we'll play anytime you want to. But he won't ever play when it's cold. If there's one raindrop, he runs from the truck. And if it's football season, NFL football, if there's an NFL football game, he ain't going to miss it. So,
well, he's a great guy, isn't he?
He's a great guy, yeah.
How did y'all hook up?
He's a very great guy. Well, I mean, I knew him, and...
Because y'all aren't the same age.
No, not at all.
He's just a little bit older than me, isn't he?
He's 47 or 8,
yeah,
something like that. No, I mean, I knew him from just coming here, but I guess maybe when I went to work for the chamber, we've gotten closer. And he was on the board, and
And the tennis, whenever the tennis started, probably about 3 years ago, that probably was a difference maker. And I'm always real careful with him too, because, I mean, I don't talk out of school or anything, but like I'm always afraid. Like I'll say something and I'll think, "Oh God, I hope I don't hear that on the radio tomorrow." You know.
That could be a problem.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
He's not embarrassed.
but I trust him. I've told him things before, and I've said, "You cannot repeat this."
And he won't
he's
tell
never,
that.
ever. He's a very trustworthy person.
I gathered that.
And I'm very. I would trust him with anything I told him, really. But I mean,
bet
you're wondering if don't ever tell anybody this, and
yeah.
it's gonna be headline news tomorrow. You know.
I built his building. There was no trouble, man. His wife's real smart too.
Yeah. Oh, she is.
She's smart.
She's very smart. I give him a hard time about the music he plays. And when I ask him,
It's a little bit older stuff.
no,
I
it's
think.
not.
I think it's not new enough.
What do you call it? Older?
I like what's on MTV.
You do?
Oh yeah, I'm current.
Of what?
I'm with it.
Of what?
I'm a Swiftie.
Well, I think he is too, and I think Jennifer is too.
Yeah.
I'm not. I am.
I like Halsey.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
I'm 100% 80s.
I'm okay with it. I like all music, but I like to stay current when I'm in the car.
I wouldn't.
During the regular working day, I want to be
I wouldn't.
current.
I would do not know current music, and I don't want to. 80s, I kind of came out of
So
it.
you're 96.9 because they play the 80s,
Yeah,
70s,
but that's
80s.
what I wish Steve would play.
Yeah.
But no, I listen to XM radio for the most part.
I don't have XM. I like the live.
Yeah,
Even if it's bad music, I want it live.
yeah. I've got 70s, 80s, first wave, and I've even got the 60s channel on there. You can hear a good song on there every once in a while. But no. So I give him a hard time about that, and he says Jennifer picks out all the music. But I'm like,
I don't think she does.
nobody. Now you've broken that concept. Now I can't say that anymore. If you're telling me you like that music,
Oh yeah, I like
but
the
you
current.
said you said it was kind of old too, though. But you
I
mean
think
like
I play it. I like more current than he plays.
you mean like he's like the 2000s or something.
Yeah, I like MTV. What's on MTV that morning?
I didn't even know there was still an MTV.
Oh yeah.
I just have it on the tennis channel.
Does let me ask you this: do you how many kids you got?
2,
How old are they?
38 and 35. My daughter's in Nashville.
What's she do there?
She is, she works for Sunbelt Rentals, and she's 5 foot tall. She was a cheerleader at UT, which that was a big deal for her. But she was going to go to law school, and then she decided she got a job in a law firm. She was going to take a year off, so she got a job in a law firm and worked there for about 4.5, 5 years, and realized she didn't want to be a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And so she started working for this company called Trojan Labor. It was a female-owned company. Mm-hmm. And so she went around with a little pink hard hat and called on. It was like an employment agency. So she'd go to a construction site and say, "Do you need drywallers? Do you need, carpenters? What do you need?" And plumbers, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they would provide the labor. And so that got her in that world. And then she did porta potties. She did dumpsters, like leasing them to these companies and stuff. And then she got this opportunity to work for Sunbelt Rentals. Do you know that company? Like the big cranes and the big heavy duty, they're
like
all,
tear down the building.
they're like green and with yellow, their logo. So so she went to work there, I think about 2.5, 3 years ago. And you know what's going on in Nashville? I mean, it's exploding as far as construction and stuff. And she had all those contacts from all those businesses that she had worked with.
She have to drive around Nashville a lot?
In a big old truck. I couldn't even climb up in her truck. It's so big. And she's a little lady, But she loves it, and her customers love her, and she's doing great. She's killing it.
What about your son?
My son is in Chattanooga. He's a runner for a law firm there, Spears Moore. And he was a big swimmer in high school, since he was 7 years old. But he's been working there for.
That's a big law firm, Spears Moore.
Yeah, yeah, and he likes it. He's been there like 13 years, but he likes it. And he lives in Chattanooga, but he comes up here. He comes up here every Sunday to see Charlie, the dog.
Oh.
That's his buddy.
When Charlie dies, you may not see him anymore. Right?
That might be the end of it, yeah. But no, he came up today, as a matter of fact. So, but usually every Sunday he comes up.
It's Mother's Day. Today's Mother's Day. I hadn't even called my mother yet. I got to call her.
Are you serious?
I hadn't even called her. I've been busy this morning.
Well, see, I went to see mine yesterday.
So you were called up.
Yeah, and she called me this morning to wish me happy birthday. She calls me the minute I was born, and she stepped out of church before Sunday school to call me, and she says I'm a
For
little,
the minute.
She said I'm a little early. But yeah, she's done that. I'm gonna miss that phone call. She's 87 years old.
She's got more to come.
Well, she's still independent, drives herself, and kind of scares us a little bit, but she's doing good.
And she watches after Charlie on Saturday morning.
She watches Charlie on Saturday. Yeah.
Mike, it's been great, buddy.
I really enjoyed it.
Keep up the good work.